Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Generation Logistics. My name is Ed and I am your host. Today we are discussing the scientific side of logistics. I'm joined by Oliver, Evie and Kyle. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Well, let's start with a little bit about you guys and what you do. Oliver, can I start with you?
I'm Oliver. I'm currently undertaking my placement year for university at Wincanton.
Fantastic, thank you.
Hi, I'm Evie Vincent. I work for Tesco and I help to decarbonise their distribution fleet.
Wow, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kyle. I work for Maritime Transport as a transport manager, effectively responsible for all legal and compliance with drivers and vehicles.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you all ever so much for joining us. Great to have all your experience in the room. So why are scientific roles so important to the evolution of the logistics industry? Kat, can you help me with that?
Well, I would say sustainability is at the forefront of everybody's mind. Logistics industry, due to the sheer size of it, is something that needs to be incorporated. And especially, I would say, the last 20 years, everything has moved on exponentially. Fuel efficiency being a key component of that. Sustainable fuels, biofuels, synthetic fuels, or even electronic vehicles are making their way into the market. So without science, without that investment of knowledge and resource, we won't get anywhere. So I would say, as I mentioned previously, it's huge.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's interesting to hear as well how the scientific side of this is really coming key into helping with sustainability, which is so important at this moment in time for everybody in the world. Oliver, you're new into your placement here. Is this something you've come across a lot? I realise that you haven't been in your role for a long period of time, but have you seen much of an evolution or heard much about it in your placement?
Yeah, well, I got quite heavily involved with some HGV trials that were on site. They were electric versions, and despite my lack of experience, I found that it was very important, even though our fleet on our site is quite small, that everyone needs to make a difference. And I think that bringing EV trials onto the site was a very crucial move for us.
That's fantastic. And may I ask what EV is, just because I'm unaware?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. That means that's electric vehicles, and HGV stands for heavy goods vehicles. So that's your big lorries that you'll see on the road. Fantastic.
Thank you ever so much. Evie, within your role, what sort of roles can you apply specialist science to, and how does it vary within the various sectors in your industry?
I think it varies massively. I think that, especially with my role in sustainability, science is crucial. As we look for things that are new, innovative technologies, such as solar, sort of alternative fuels such as hydrogen, HVO, fuel additives. All of these things require science trying to understand how can we make our vehicles go as far but with more sustainable alternatives. So there's a massive range, but I think that especially with solar, it's something to really think about because ultimately behind that is science. So it's really varied, but what I like about my role is that it's not defined to just one thing. It's pretty much anything. As long as you can try and decarbonise our distribution fleet and hit our ambitious targets, then you're on the right track.
That's brilliant. I love that, and such a great target to have as well. And Oliver, I saw you nodding along there. You obviously agree with those points, and it's come into your world as well. Is that right?
Yeah, no. Alongside the HGV trials that we were undergoing on our site, we're currently looking to install solar panels. And there's a company called 3TI which manufacture solar panel car parks, which are portable and can be taken to any car park site anywhere across the country. So as Evie said, I think solar panels are crucial as well.
Fantastic. I love that as well. I never would have thought about taking solar panels with you where you go, and that just shows the variety within logistics here and how much science can impact what you're all doing. If any of our viewers are interested in the technology and innovation side, we of course have our technology and innovation episode, which they can check out at generationlogistics.org. So we've spoken about some of that sustainability, which is so key. Have you got any other examples of scientific methodologies and how that might have changed your respective roles in the time that you've been there? Kyle, can I ask you that?
Yeah, I would say, without wanting to link it too heavily to tech, science and tech do go hand in hand. But remote technology and remote science on our vehicles is something that, 20 years ago just wasn't there. So breaking it down, a driver has the ability to go from A to B, and we record that data. Now, once upon a time, that was analog, so he would hand in his information at the end of the week, and you would realise what's happened. Nowadays, all of that is available at fingertips. So for the likes of myself, I can see exactly what's happening. The driver can log everything there and then, really. So it helps in major ways for safety, protection of vehicles, protection of other road users, something that's only going to get stronger.
Yeah, that's so key as well, isn't it? We spoke to a lot of people about the safety of our drivers and everybody within the logistics sector. It's really interesting to see how you're going to use that data. Evie, you seem really interested in that point.
I think talk about the evolution in terms of our role. I started with Tesco back as a graduate and joined distribution very much completely fresh slate. I knew nothing about it. So my first year, I was put in this team, actually in the engineering team, knew nothing about it. And it's interesting now that having had a year and then come back to the role that I'm in now, massively so, science has been even more integrated into what I do day to day. And when we're looking at, alternative fuels such as hydrogen, which I mentioned earlier, it's absolutely pivotal. And how do you extract that hydrogen but in a green and sustainable way? Ultimately, that's science. And that's something that 2 years ago I never would have imagined I'd be working in. But actually is really interesting and very much links to this. Yeah, it's really interesting. And to be honest, not something I would have thought of, that you're all, that it's so pivotal in the industry. And it's so interesting to hear how you're bringing that together. So I'd be really interested to know how you utilise scientific principles to drive innovation and innovation within your sector. Evie, can I start with you? Absolutely. I think that obviously when you learn science back at school, you have the three areas you have: biology, chemistry and physics. I think all of those in some way relate to what we do now. For me personally, I think physics is very relevant, which is something I hadn't imagined it would be, but actually when we think about cruise control and coasting, low rolling resistance tyres, things like this, that's where actually it really comes into play, because ultimately how our vehicles work and how much think about the payload that they have and the weight of them, or how inflated the tyres are, it makes a massive difference to how much diesel we use and ultimately how sustainable we can be. Something like that, I think, really links in terms of physics.
Yeah, I think following on from Evie's point, coming into that, you have tracking carbon footprint. I know that is one key thing that we were looking at on our site, is looking at how much diesel are we using and how much are we emitting and what can we offset. Should we replace all our vehicles with electric alternatives? And it comes in stuff like the carbon cycle, understanding where all this goes into the air. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Brilliant.
And if we then go more towards the chemistry side of things, fuel additives, hydrogen, HVO, things like this, that's where looking at a combination of things, how can those help our diesel to last longer, for us to use less? So I think in both senses, it really makes a difference in terms of how far we can go with the fleet that we have. That's brilliant. And there's such a holistic approach that you're taking to all of this to really understand how you can support the environment, but also ultimately support your own businesses. To outsiders, science and business may not seem to go hand in hand. Have you got any examples, or can you explain how scientific principles have helped optimize strategy and operations? Kyle, transport manager, you may have something on this.
Yeah, you're right. You wouldn't think that they would go hand in hand, but when you drill into it, they absolutely do, in the sense of points we raised earlier with regards to fuel efficiency. So it's something that will always be scrutinised. Every drop counts, even more so nowadays as we try to move away from what we would call old school technology. While ever it's relevant, which it still certainly is, getting every drop can only be beneficial for not only the planet but also the business. So when the two go hand in hand, it's a no-brainer.
That makes perfect sense, yes. Evie, do you see any synergy between business and science, or do they work completely in isolation?
No, I think they do link. I think that what's interesting is that you don't have to have studied one particular thing to realise that it links to the career you're in now. I think that if you were in science, you wouldn't imagine that it would help in this particular industry. Similarly, some people do English literature and end up in logistics. It doesn't have to be one thing, which is what's so good about the logistics industry. But I think science in particular, with what I do, so fleet innovation and decarbonisation, massively so. And I think that on a daily basis, I'm getting presented with solutions which come from the root of science to help us be more sustainable and improve our distribution fleet and run it in a more decarbonised manner.
Fabulous. So you can really see sort of the business output, which is this using less carbon emissions and ultimately your profits as well, as you are a business making the most of that diesel, as you said, Kyle. Is all being influenced by the scientific principles that you're using. It's wonderful. Can you give us some examples of how you've used scientific analysis to identify and then overcome issues at work? Oliver?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, I use a lot of the carbon footprint cycle so that we could track what our fleet is emitting and how we can save costs. As Evie was mentioning, how the driver handles the truck, hard braking, stuff like that, as well as working towards a more sustainable fleet. And I think alongside that, analysing stuff like grid connections, where is that coming from? Is it coming from a power plant where they burn charcoal, or is it a nuclear power plant? So just analysing different stuff like that can make all the difference.
That's really fascinating. So you're really going down to the granular level and looking at where those fuels are being sourced from, as well as everything else. Brilliant, thank you. Evie, same question to you.
Yeah, so Tesco has set the ambitious target to be fully decarbonised by 2035. So very ambitious, a lot of work to be done, and ultimately a challenge to overcome. I think that our main area of focus at the moment is one of our depots in Peterborough, and science has really helped us there to try and look at working this problem. We have currently 4 solar-powered refrigerated trailers there, and we're hoping to get 5 more this year. And ultimately, they are saving massive amounts of diesel because they're collecting energy from the sun and able to store it and use it on the road. We also have electrical hookup points there as well, again, sort of science-based and how we can run not using diesel, but instead using the grid. So I think that we are not at the end yet, we don't have all the answers, but we very much rely on science and helping us in the future to work the problem and make sure we meet that ambitious target.
That's amazing. And quite the ambitious target, but must be so exciting to be at the forefront of that,
massively.
That innovation.
Yeah, no, and I think as well with Tesco, because such a big company, when you make a very small difference, so what we're doing now, we're still very early days, makes a massive difference to sort of how much generally the UK carbon emissions are across sort of the UK. So to be able to say I'm part of that is something I'm really proud of.
Fantastic, yes. And Kyle, same question to you.
To echo Evie's point, really, exactly that with, maritime, who I work for in particular, that's something that we're learning on the job, in the sense of we're in uncharted territory, so everything we can do, 1% gains will make huge differences. I know Maritime have pledged to put 18 electric vehicles in by the end of the year. Again, uncharted territory, we've never done it. We don't know how successful it's going to be, but at some point we know we have to make the jump.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Alongside that, we've got the hydrogen cells, as Evie was explaining. That's another area that Maritime are going to invest in. So I do believe by the end of 2025, there's going to be 48 new vehicles that we've never utilised before, just so that we can try and, make our mark on the next step of where we're going to go with this.
This is fascinating, absolutely brilliant. And we've mentioned here about nuclear power in with some of the answers. How do your companies utilise nuclear power? Is that something you do? Carl, let me start with you.
Currently we don't, but that doesn't mean we won't. Pretty much at the moment, everything, all cards are on the table in the sense of what can we make work. At the moment, it's very battery heavy in the sense of we do believe that might be the best for our sector. But certainly if, science continues to evolve and it opens up other opportunities, I can guarantee that it's something that not just Maritime but other logistics firms will look at that and think if it's win-win for everybody, then it has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about at Tesco's?
Yeah, I think I exactly echo that answer. Massively, we're still very early days. The market isn't quite developed yet. So we don't use it currently, but it's not to say we never will. I think similarly, nothing's off the table. So we're willing to explore everything, but we want to make sure we do it in a sustainable way. Massively so at the moment, battery electric is the forefront, but that doesn't mean we're not exploring other avenues. And we hope that by the time we come to 2035, we have lots of different solutions to help us hit our targets.
Yes, that's brilliant. And really great to hear that you're all being driven by the science and by the evidence there to help you hit some fantastic goals. Brilliant. As science is based on a lot of theories, is there a lot of collaboration between your departments that may be more science heavy and other departments within logistics? And how does that theory come into practice? Oliver, you're on your placement. Have you seen that in practice?
Well, I've been spending most of my time working with the transport team, obviously what with it being electric vehicles. However, I found that it's required a lot of collaboration from the entire site. We're getting a lot of people asking questions and a lot of people wondering what difference they can make. I've had some people come to me asking for little bits like, can we get charges on site and all stuff like that. So I find that it's a collective effort. Obviously, some people will do more work than others, but I find that everyone has a common interest and strives for those goals together.
That's really exciting as well. Great to hear that not only are you collaborating and going out to other departments, but people are coming to you as well. That's brilliant. And yourself, Evie, within Tesco's?
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky because strictly speaking, I work as part of head office and distribution there. But I spend a lot of time in depot as well. So I get to see sort of the teams that are in head office, but also our colleagues that are working on the ground, either in stores, but also at depot. I think what's fascinating is that it's massively collaborative. So I work with people from marketing, procurement, anything at all, really. Ultimately, what we do is a massive part of a jigsaw that comes together to be able to get our products to our customers and on the shelves and into people's homes. So whilst I work in distribution, I massively collaborate with people in all different departments to make sure that we get the end goal.
Yes, that's so key, isn't it? Because sometimes we can look at all these areas in niche and as their own, but actually you're part of a bigger business, and logistics overall is supporting all of your businesses and beyond. So important. And Carl, yourself, how do you find cross-collaboration? Is that something you guys do a lot of?
It is, and to be honest, with the size of what's required with regards to the sustainability of the future, I've been surprised by the fact that it's not just our business that wants to collab within itself, but also other businesses are incentivized to share with one another, because ultimately the end goal means everybody wins in that respect. So once upon a time you had business A, B and C that would all sort of compete against one another, which still is the case, but ultimately this is bigger than that. So I think that's one thing that surprised me, but in a good way.
Yeah,
I think following on from Carl's point it's about collaborating, because we all have a social responsibility when it comes to sustainability. I know that in Canton we've been working a lot with companies like Zenobē. Zenobē's a company that they create essentially big battery packs that act as a portable charger for vehicles on site or to power sites in general. So they were one of the companies that I was in contact with, and I find that we're looking to establish a relationship with them for our site and other sites as well. So once again, we can all work towards a goal together.
That's brilliant. And it would be very easy as an outsider to go, these are all very separate businesses with their own individual targets and therefore may not communicate. But it's great to hear that within the logistics sector, you're all cross-collaborating to hit what's such a very important goal. So we've mentioned some relatively advanced scientific methods here. For those who are school leavers, perhaps, they may not have necessarily learned about hydrogen and all these different pieces that you're pulling into your work. What kind of training and resources are available to help them learn and gain the specialist knowledge that you guys have? Evie, can I start with you in the middle there?
I think that my main reassurance would be that you don't have to know everything. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't know anything coming into my role, particularly about distribution, and that's okay. A lot of it's learning on the job. There's still lots to learn. So whenever you speak to anybody, not one person knows everything about innovation and fleet innovation and decarbonisation. So we're very much learning from each other. At Tesco in particular, though, they're really good at helping you and supporting you with your learning and development. So I got put on my Transport Manager CPC course. I've done my NEBOSH. I'm hoping to do an apprenticeship as well in September. So Tesco have been really supportive of that. So you don't need to worry about if you don't know everything. A lot of it, you'll get supported by your company in the future to make sure that you're brought up to speed with what's the current trends.
That's brilliant. And for any of our viewers or listeners at home who want to stay up to date with the qualifications, as we know they all change all the time, you can find out more information at generationlogistics.org. And if you want to find out more about apprenticeships, you can go to Not Going to Uni website and get further information on there. Kyle, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Lots of advancements here. What sort of training and development would you suggest to school leavers who want to get some more information?
Again, similarly echoing what Evie's just said, in the sense of transport's very vague. It's huge. It's bigger than it's ever been. But I would genuinely say the ultimate skill required is that hands-on approach of willing to go the extra mile, pardon the pun, but also communication.
There are advanced scientific terminology we've talked about here that school leavers may not necessarily be trained in. What sort of resources and training is available to them, Kyle?
Well, specifically at Maritime, anything that's required to take you on your path is provided to you. But I would say ultimately a key point or a key factor in which people need to arrive to work with is the ability to communicate and being able to put their point forward, especially in a fast-paced environment where listening and speaking is pivotal, definitely.
Yeah, that's so key as well. And I suppose that comes down to hobbies and interests, even when we're at school or school leaver stage. I don't know if any of you had any particular interests or hobbies that help with that communication skills that you might advise young people to go out and take or learn?
Yeah, I've always had a pretty keen interest in sustainability, so it was up to me to be proactive, which is another factor that I would definitely encourage. Opportunities won't always be there for you. You have to go out and seek them a lot of the time, and being proactive definitely helped me to get onto the vehicle trials that we were having. And I found that from there, that's definitely helped me to develop my knowledge, because I think when people think of science, they're thinking PhDs and universities and degrees, but I was never very good at science myself. But if you have the interest and you have the drive to want to go find more, then there's an abundance of resources. One of the main ones is the internet. You don't have to go spend money. There's plenty of articles and stuff out there that will help you inform yourself on what your interests are.
So I love that you've mentioned you have a passion for sustainability. There is a lot of stigma surrounding environmental protection and the logistics sector, but it seems like you're all passionate about moving in the same direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I've found that with my existing interests, I've been able to, within the logistics sector, to advance those further. There's a lot of sustainability projects going on, and there's a lot of drive for it, not just on my side, but across the whole sector. And I found that if you're an environmental champion like myself, this sector is very accessible and is very easy for you to come and help make a difference.
No, I love that. That's absolutely brilliant. And Kyle, how about yourself? How are you finding that?
Well, I genuinely do believe that attitudes are starting to shift. I've been in this industry now nearly 15 years, which it feels a lot longer than that sometimes. But yeah, once upon a time, it was just a case of get it from A to B. Nowadays, there's more to it than that, in the sense of, yes, get it from A to B, but do it in the most sustainable way. And I think genuinely more and more people, as we move further along, are on board with that, in the sense that that's ultimately where we need to go with it.
And Evie, how about yourself in your role?
Yeah, I think what's good about my role as well is that I had an interest in sustainability anyway in my personal life. So to be able to filter that through to my professional career as well is really exciting, that I can sort of practice what I preach and make a difference. And now at Tesco, everything we do ultimately is leading towards sustainability. We would never introduce a new project that would be detrimental to the progress that we've already made. So it's good to see that similar to both these two here, we're going in the right direction and everyone generally is looking more progressively than I've seen before.
That's fantastic to hear. And I suppose anybody at home who is passionate about sustainability and wants to make a difference can do so by getting involved in logistics and changing it from the ground up. So you're not being defined by what you once were, but actually moving forward towards the same goal, which is brilliant. So I want to ask, what are some of the long-term growth opportunities for people who come into this career and maybe want to progress the scientific side of things? What sort of career path can they expect in your industry? Kyle, can I start with you?
Yeah, I would say the possibilities are pretty much endless in the sense of we're in uncharted territory and we need to do whatever we can to make everything about what we do more sustainable. So if it's, if it has to be fuel, which I'm not convinced it has to be fuel, but certainly there's progress to be made there, be it biofuel, synthetic, etc. All of that is going to require, further information, and that's going to need education to do so. We move along to what I'm hoping into electric vehicles and the battery cells, again, further technological advancements are going to be required. That's going to need, a huge investment of time and resource. So realistically, I can only, envisage that that's the route that we're going to have to take, and that's going to need, a lot of people dedicating a lot of time.
Fantastic. Oliver, you're in your placement year. Have you seen an obvious career path given your interest in this scientific area?
Yeah, luckily it's been made very easy for me to gain access into these trials and everything that we've been doing on the site. I think that I've become the environmental champion, and I can definitely see it being a possibility that I'd be welcome back to progress the site further and moving beyond just the trials of the vehicles and look into like the power source of the warehouse and just other sustainable projects.
Fantastic, I love that. And Evie, you mentioned earlier that you've come from the graduate route, and so you followed somewhat of a career path. Can you see how things might evolve in the future, specifically with this evolution in scientific advancements?
Yeah, I think what's great about working in a big company like Tesco is that the options are endless. You're not confined to doing just one thing. And I think I'm an advocate for that, and that I started in distribution, I've done group innovation, now I'm in my role. So it's nice that you can dot around to lots of different things. So who knows where I'll end up. But for now, I very much hope to progress in where I am and the innovation, the technology and the science that is incorporated into that. Ultimately, we don't have all the answers yet. So who knows where we're going to be by 2035. And I hope to see a lot more solar and even new innovative technologies that haven't even been created yet, which ultimately will change my role as I progress. But definitely it's exciting because you're not confined to just one thing.
I love that. There seems to be an ever-changing face of logistics here, and lots of opportunities for anybody listening to this to get involved with. With that in mind, what advice would you give to anybody who's looking to pursue a scientific career within the logistics sector? Oliver, we're going to start at your end.
I think, like I said before, when people hear science, they think you need a lot of qualifications. I think my advice would be, don't be intimidated by it. It's all very easily accessible. I've gone in there with just an interest, and within a few months my knowledge developed massively, and I found that I was getting opportunities and speaking to new people, and I never thought it would come of what has come of it. I never thought it would be. I think definitely proactivism is a big thing. You have to go out and seek it. Not everything will come to you. It's definitely a key thing to have to want it and to have that drive. And you will find that very quickly you'll get offers stuff to do, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, being proactive is so important, and I think that's definitely something our viewers can take away. Evie, what piece of advice would you give to our listeners?
I would say don't dismiss logistics just because you're interested in science. I think massively they go hand in hand, and there's room for even more science than there already is in this industry. So give it a go, explore it, get excited by it, because ultimately the options are endless and it's really, really needed. So just give it your best shot, have a go, and trust that there's more roles in logistics as an industry than you might first think.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I love that there are more opportunities. I know I've certainly learned a lot about the various different job roles that are available across the sector. And Cal, finally, what advice would you give to anybody who's listening today?
I would say stay open-minded about the fact that, logistics isn't what it once was. It was once pigeonholed as something that, science had an involvement in, but ultimately it wasn't for the benefit of all. That's absolutely not the case anymore. I can tell you that firsthand. And certainly anybody who's coming into that sector who's got that open-minded approach of, yes, I can make a difference, be it only small margins initially, eventually we will get there.
That's brilliant. And thank you all ever so much for your time. Such invaluable information there, which I know our viewers will love. Thank you all for watching today. If you want further information, you can check out generationlogistics.org. But until next time, thank you for watching.